Good day, class. Welcome again to another day that is full of learnings and full of fun. So for today, we will be discussing the law of demand. Okay, so in economics, there are terms or there are concepts that you must learn to understand the better market situations. The first concept is the concept of utility. So what then is a utility? So when we say utility, it refers to a person's willingness and ability to consume a good in reaction to price changes. Okay? You need to remember that utility forms the basis of law of demand. So examples of utility are electricity, and other products that are normally produced in bulk. So what then is a law of demand? So when we say law of demand, it states that as the price of a good goes up, the quantity demanded of that good goes down, and all other things remaining constant or ceteris paribus. So if all other factors remain equal, the higher price of a good, the fewer people will demand that good. So the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded, and vice versa. So there is an indirect relationship between the demand and the price of a good. So under the law of demand, we have here the demand curve. So when we say demand curve, it illustrates the linear attribute of the law of demand. So the inverse relationship of price and quantity demanded is best explained through a demand curve. Okay, so points along the curve corresponds to the quantity demanded at varying price levels. So let's have an example. So at point A, where the price of apples is 30 pesos per piece, the quantity demanded is 1. At point B, where the price of apple is 10 pesos per piece, quantity demanded is 3 pieces. So to illustrate the given example, we have here the graph of point A and point B. Again, the point A, the price of an apple is 30 pesos. Therefore, the quantity demanded is 1. Then at point B, the price of each apple is 10 pesos. The quantity demanded is 3. Okay? So, as you can see, there is a downward sloping. Okay? Which implies a negative slope. Okay? So, we have here also the demand schedule. Let's have an example. This is the demand schedule for ice cream. So there are two columns for the demand schedule. We have here the price and the quantity demanded per scoop. Okay, so on the left part, the prices 150, 150, and 25. And at quantity demanded, we have here 0, 2, 4, and 5. Now, let's compute the given slope at that given demand schedule for ice cream. In computing our slope, we have here the formula slope is equal to change in price over change in quantity demanded, or the QD. So slope is equal to 25 minus 50 over 5 minus 4. So let's compute 25 minus 50, that's negative 25 over 5 minus 4 is 1. So therefore, our slope is negative 25 over 1, or negative 25. Okay, we have here also the determinants of demand. Okay, you have learned that price influences the quantity demanded of a product. But aside from price, there are a lot of factors that can affect the amount of good of a consumer that is willing to purchase. Now, let's ponder on those different demands. First is the income. So, the extra spending money by a consumer is referred to in economics is what we call the disposable income. So this refers to the net amount after taxes and other mandatory contributions have been deducted. So this additional money is what drives a consumer's desire to buy or purchase more of a good. So as as consumers' income rises, the quantity demanded of good also rises. So this is known as the income effect. Okay, so goods that display this attribute are identified as normal goods. Okay, so when we say normal goods, these are goods that a consumer buy if the income rises. Okay, so notice that we have here the vertical axis that is represented by income rather than by price. So this convention of graphing consumer income and the quantity demanded is formally known as Angel's curve. Okay, so this was named after Ernst Angel, who is a German statistician from 19th century, from 1821 to 1896. So this states that food expenditure as part of household income decreases as income rises. So an example of normal good is a cloth, okay? Our clothes. So while there are a couple of exemptions and contradictions to the income effect, it generally holds true for most goods. For instance, an employee who just got a raise might shop for more clothes or choose to update his or her wardrobe. Okay, and deciding to eat at an expensive restaurant rather than at a fast food outlet on a payday is another example of normal good. The next determinant is the inferior goods. So inferior goods are goods that exhibit a decline in quantity demanded as consumer income rises. So the inferior goods are often of poorer quality than the normal goods. And this drives consumers to substitute the inferior good for a better product when their income level improves. So an example of this would be buying vegetables instead of meat or choosing a cheaper variety of fish rather than a prime cuts of meat. The next one is the substitute good. So when you say substitute goods, these are goods that meet the same requirements to fulfill the same needs as another good. So let's assume that good B is a substitute of good A. Okay, so as the price of good A increases, the quantity demanded of its substitute, which is a good B, also increases. So the idea behind substitutes is basically having alternatives. So when a good becomes more expensive, its alternatives become relatively cheaper and generally more appealing. So this is known as the substitute effect. Okay, so we have, for example, a bird brand and birch tree. Okay, so as the price of, for example, the bird brand is our good A and the birch tree is our good B. So as the price of bird brand increases, the quantity demanded of the birch tree also increases. Okay, next. We have here also the complementary goods. So this is another factor that influences the quantity demanded of a product. It's the presence of a complementary good for this product. So when you say complementary goods, these are generally consumed or used together. To illustrate the complementary goods or to illustrate this given determinant, okay, let's assume that good B is a complementary good of good A. Okay, so an increase in price of good A decreases the quantity demanded of good A, okay, following the law of demand. And correspondingly, quantity demanded of its complementary good also decline. Okay, so we have here the classic example of goods or complementary goods are coffee and creamer. So when coffee becomes more expensive, there will be less demand for coffee. So it follows that demand for creamer will also drop. So since creamer is not ordinarily consumed on its own, so the demand for creamer will also decrease. We have here the consumer expectations. So this is also another factor that influences price and quantity demanded. So consumers anticipate the price of a particular product to rise. They will tend to buy more of that product now before the perceived or scheduled price increase. So this is commonly observed in the case of oil price increases. So motorists anticipating a fuel price increase will likely gas up before the price adjustment becomes effective. So another example of this is the consumer expects the prices of ingredients and canned goods to rise during the Christmas holidays, especially this time. Okay, the canned goods, the prices of ingredients, okay, like the pastas, the sauces, the ham, and so on and so forth. Okay, the prices of those products will increase. So as a result, consumers tend to buy and stock up on holiday. Okay, so goods way before the holidays, and which drives demand up before a price increase. So during August or September or earlier than December, we are to stock. We are to stock up our goods. We are to stock up the ingredients for our Noche Buena. Okay, and the last one, we have here the taste and preferences. So this is finally, this is the other considerations such as increased popularity, taste and personal preference influence the demand for a specific good. So this is more evident in the case of branded products. So some consumers will inclined to buy a certain product because of the perceived status of owning it. So examples of goods that are largely driven by consumers' taste and preferences are the cars, the gadgets, the mobile phones, and so on and so forth. Okay. So in other cases, consumers will be swayed to buy a good because everyone else is buying it. Okay. So downloading a certain smartphone application or mobile game that everyone has is also an example. Okay. And in both instances, price has nothing to do with the consumer's decision to buy that certain good. Rather, the price in demand was driven by factors such as preferences and popularity. So, thank you for listening. And that ends the presentation and that ends the lesson for today.